Yo! So, Layla messaged me at 5 a.m. on Wednesday morning. I picked it up at about 5:30, and it was only to answer my question from the previous night. Their correspondence, their communication with me isn't great when I've not got them, and it is a bit upsetting. And it was only a simple question about her trip she had on Wednesday, so on the day of, and she messaged just to say yes, that she, and that was it. So the message itself, harmless, but messaging at 5 a.m., my first thought just went to, why is she messaging at 5 a.m.? I don't allow them to have their phones in their rooms, and I think without being there, the temptation to reach for it and check it, like we've all been there, right? I've moved my phone away from me at night time. But if it's there, it's so easy to just reach for it, see if you've got any messages. Before you know it, you're in WhatsApp. Worse than that, maybe you've started to scroll, you've done a bit of doom scrolling first thing in the morning. And before you know it, you're in a world of pain, you're awake, you are then going to struggle to get back to sleep. Well, I struggle to get to sleep in the night time if I've been on my phone too late, let alone if I've gone to my phone during the night. And I'm an adult. So for a 10-year-old, a recently 10-year-old, there's no way she's getting back to sleep after that. And in fact, she said she hasn't been sleeping well. But that's beside the point. Even if you're not sleeping well, that temptation, in my mind, shouldn't be there. And that leads us on to a wider point of social media, phones, which smartphones. And I'm so grateful that I grew up in the 90s, and I know everybody always harps back on, I was great, it was much better times when I was a child, and every generation's probably said that. But I do really believe it, that we had to have conversation, we had to go around and call for our friends, we had to be in each other's company, and yes, we might have been playing on the Mega Drive or an Amiga back in the day, or later on a Nintendo, a PlayStation, but we're still in each other's company, and we're still talking with one another, and we're, I don't know, celebrating a goal on Pro Evo back in the day, or Moonstone on the Amiga, for those of you that remember that. But you're in each other's company. And even with parents and that family dynamic where I didn't used to like EastEnders and the soaps, but me and my sister, when she loved them, but it was all that was on, right? You had 4 choices, 5 choices a bit later on as to what channel you could watch, and you just spent time in each other's company. The break would be on, whose turns it to make the cup of tea, usually my dad's, and we would just all have a cup of tea together and wait for the adverts to finish. But also, that was part of the fun as well. We used to have an advert game where we would try and guess the company whose advert it was, and the first one to guess it won. So something as easy as that, but you're in each other's company. Whereas now with technology and social media and how easy it is to just go for it, and I'm terrible, I use my phone way too much. And that's my fear for my daughters, is that over reliance on a piece of technology that doesn't serve them. And I just don't buy into any of the arguments about having social media at too young an age. Layla doesn't have social media. Izzy has Snapchat when she's not with me, because I won't let her have it here. But the temptation to still, sometimes Layla will ring her friends and speak to them, and they're playing a game, so there is that level of communication, and maybe that is an advantage, maybe that is one plus, but it doesn't outweigh tiredness, grumpiness, a lack of attention, that need for something now, that instant gratification, that I don't like that for dinner, what else is there? Well, no, this is what you're having. Whereas on a phone, flick from game to game, flick from video to video. I just don't like it. And I think it's far easier now for parents to take a softer stance and not be strong enough with their kids. And I don't know where it started. But I've seen it in education as well, where teachers aren't seen as professionals like they once were. If I got in trouble at school, I'd be in trouble at home, and that was the case for, I would say, more children than now. If kids are in trouble at school, it's what have the school done to support my child? And sometimes that's valid, but my point is parents need to take ownership over their children's behavior more than they do currently. Be stronger with them, have boundaries in terms of the expectations on behavior, what is expected from them at home, and you are allowed to withhold stuff from your kids. They don't have to have phones, they don't have to have social media, they don't have to have 25 different meal options because they don't like what you've cooked them. And I was a fussy kid, so I know that's always been a problem. But I think we can expect more. When I'm a parent myself, and there's times when I think, oh, I could have been a bit stronger there. So I think we can be too soft on our kids, and we should toughen up a little bit in that regard. In terms of social media, I was very pleased with the recent announcement that social media, the legal age of using it will be raised to 16. Why it's going to take until 2027 April, I think, which will probably get pushed back, knowing the government and previous governments before them, nothing ever gets rolled out on time, even though it should be quite straightforward. Like 80 billion spent on PPE and technology during that coronavirus time shows how inadequate successive governments have been. That's a bit of a side point. So the news is great. I'm all for it. Like I said, I just don't see the benefits. And so pushing that age up, great. Izzy's response, as I said, I don't let her have social media here. Well, my friends will just find a way around it. And I've no doubt that they will, or some of them will. But again, that's where parents come in. I said to her she could have social media when she's 13, which is currently the legal age, and I don't want her to. I'd rather she didn't, and maybe that's me. Like, I could be stronger in that. And then when the news came out, she said, well, you said I could have it at 13. I was like, yeah, but that was when the law was 13. The law's now going up to 16, so that will be the age you're allowed it. And then she calls me all sorts, and I say calls me all sorts, I'm painting her to be an awful child. She's not, she's great, but she did tell me she hated me this morning, so got a bit of cherry juice on her top, which wasn't my fault. Anyway, she had a bit of a rant. She can do that at times, but she does simmer down and recognises and apologises where necessary. So she's a lovely, lovely kid. She's great, I promise. But she wasn't happy with my take on it. And again, it's like, well, yeah, I'm sure there will be workarounds. But what are parents going to do then? Are they just going to go, that's fine, and they'll work around it? Would you let your child drink underage? Would you let them drive underage? No, you shouldn't do. So why is this okay? It's being done for a reason. There's experts behind it, and the conspiracy theorists will think that it's because of wanting to tag and know locations of young people. But if anybody's watched the documentary on social media, I forget what it's called now, when you've got the CEOs and you've got the directors of various social media companies saying, I don't let my kids use it. And you start to think, well, if they know the intricacies, the ins and outs, the things that grab attention so much that people can't, because that's what they get paid for, right? Social media, it's free unless you pay for some, like Twitter service, the blue tick, which I don't. They get paid for the attention and the time spent on those apps. So Facebook ads and things, you get targeted, right? And if you start looking at them, that's when they make their money. So of course they want people to be on there as long as possible and drive engagement. And if they're not letting their kids on it, then there's a reason for that. So again, be strong, please, parents. And finally, on on it is, yeah, the challenge of co-parenting are there, right? It's tough, different expectations in different houses, and I'm not saying that one's right and one's wrong, but that is a challenge that I face. But I just always come back to the negatives, potential negatives of social media, and phones in general far outweigh any positives. I suppose the one that jumps to mind is bullying. Like in the old days, the old-fashioned days, you had to be a proper bully. You had to do it face to face, physically or verbally. And I'm not saying that was a good thing. Bullying's never good, but it was harder to do it. Whereas now, like Izzy said the other day, oh, a friend of mine was messaging people on my Snapchat. She got my login. I'm like, that's not good. Like, yes, it was a friend and nothing came of it, but if that friend then shares your login with somebody else or gives your phone to somebody else who it doesn't like you and starts sending messages to, I don't know, he's got a boyfriend at the moment, sends a horrible message to your boyfriend or sends a message to someone else that you said this, and then it becomes this big thing. Yeah, I just don't like it. And that will be the challenge I face in the coming months and years parenting girls. So let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think and the stance that you're taking now. What age are you going to let your kids have a phone? Social media? Are you going to stick with the law when it goes up to 16? Are you going to back that and do all you can to try and stop it? To stop your kids having it at an early age? Like, I'm sure everybody had a drink when they were underage, and I know I did, even though I was whiter than white. I was a good lad, but we all probably drunk underage, but not, well, certainly my parents wouldn't have given me alcohol. And so are we going to give our kids social media even though the law states otherwise? Let me know what you think. Cheers.